Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I have a chilaquiles video for you. It is a dinner recipe and one of my favorites, but before I get into the video, remember to subscribe and check that notification bell so you are always informed of when my next upload is. So, chilaquiles, how I make them. This is a recipe that I make on a pretty regular basis, at least once or twice a month, for my family for dinner. It consists of tortilla chips soaked in an enchilada sauce. I put black beans and corn in mine. Sometimes I will put chicken. Sometimes I will fry an egg and put that on top. And then you can serve it with whatever toppings you like. I will usually do shredded cheese, guacamole, or avocado, and then sour cream. So let me go ahead and show you the ingredients. Here are the ingredients for today's recipe, and this is just for the chilaquiles, not the toppings. I'll go into those a little later. But we have a bag of tortilla chips. This is just the brand that I purchased, but any brand of tortilla chips will do. I'm using a whole roasted rotisserie chicken. This is so convenient to have for recipes like this, but you could also cook up your own chicken. I have this red enchilada sauce. You can use red or green. You could use any spice level you want. Today I'm using the La Victoria red enchilada sauce in mild. And then in my chilaquiles, I am using whole kernel golden sweet corn and black beans. So as you can see off my stove top, I have a deep skillet pan, pretty big and pretty round. You're going to need some room for all of the chips, the sauce, and some room to stir as well. So I recommend using something like this if available. And I'm going to turn my pan on, just let it heat up a bit. The first thing to go in the pan is going to be the red enchilada sauce. So I'm going to pour that in, and you want your pan to be on a simmer. We want to slowly simmer this sauce. While I am waiting for my sauce to simmer, I'm going to make some guacamole. This is a very simple recipe. So I'm going to use one avocado, slice it in half, and then I'm going to mash it with a fork. And then I will come back and show you what else goes in the guacamole after I do that. Okay, so here's my avocado. I cut it, removed it from the skin, and now I'm just going to mash it with a fork. You'll know if your avocado is ripe if it easily mashes with the fork. So you can tell, this probably wasn't the best bowl to pick, but you can tell that the avocado is smashing really easily. So I'm going to speed this up and then I'll show you what the rest of the ingredients are. Okay, so also going in my guacamole is some onion. This is just diced white onion, pre-prepared. I'm just going to do a little bit. I don't want this to overwhelm. I don't know, that's probably like a whopping tablespoon. Going to stir that in. And then I'm also going to juice a lime. Put that in there. I'm just going to start with half. After I get my seasoning in, I'm going to taste it, see where the acid level and salt level is at. I think honestly half this lime is going to be enough, but we'll see. It smells amazing. Okay, I'm going to do salt and pepper. So there we go. Again, start with a little, mix, taste, and then add. You can always add, but you can never take out. And then I'm going to take some cilantro. Cilantro is my favorite herb. I just love the taste and the smell. But there is a gene that some people have where cilantro actually tastes like soap to them. I have a couple of friends where this is the case, where it doesn't taste like a nice green leafy herb, it tastes like soap. So if that's you, or if you just don't like cilantro, you can skip out on this. But I love it. All I'm doing is just tearing the leaves. For me, that's just easier than cutting it. I'm gonna do a bit more. I'm gonna mix it up here. Okay. So I'm gonna grab a spoon and just taste a bit. Guacamole all prepared. It's best to make guacamole not too far ahead of time because it can brown easily. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge while I do the rest of my cooking, but that will go on top of the chilaquiles once they are prepared. So as you can see, our sauce is beginning to bubble. So now I'm going to add in the chips and stir them in. I'm actually also going to turn it down a bit. So these are the chips I am using today. They're by Casa Sanchez. They're certified organic tortilla chips. I'm going to use the entire bag. I'm just going to pour those in. Be careful when you do this. You don't want the sauce to splatter. There we are. Okay. Now what I will do is mix these chips in, and we want to make sure that the sauce evenly coats all of the chips. As you can see, I am stirring my chips into the sauce. Keep an eye on the sauce. You don't want it to bubble too much. And what I'm doing is I am making sure to coat all of the chips evenly with the sauce as best as I can. And as you're stirring them around, you'll begin to feel the chips softening, which is what we want. So now what I'm going to do is add the rest of the ingredients. First, I will add my black beans. This is a 15-ounce can of black beans, drained and rinsed. If you don't rinse them, they naturally have this black liquid, and we don't want that in our dish, so make sure to drain and rinse them well. And then I'm going to be adding in a 15-ounce can of whole kernel golden sweet corn. You can use any type of corn. This is just the one I happen to pick up. That goes in there. And I just chose those two items to put in here. You could do any vegetables you want. You don't have to include the beans and the corn. I just think it adds a little to this to make it really a dinner dish. But you could certainly leave those out. And in today's recipe, I will be including chicken. I'm using a pre-made rotisserie chicken. There we go, whole roasted chicken. And what I love about these rotisserie chickens is that they're all ready to go. You don't have to bother with cooking your own chicken. I'm going to shred it just with my fingers. You could also use a fork to do this, but just pull it apart with your fingers. And I'm going to also put that in the pan with our chips, beans, and corn and sauce. So I'm making this with chicken. I have made this recipe vegetarian before, where you just obviously leave out the chicken. But if you want that protein, sometimes what I've done is put an egg on top. You can fry an egg and put that on top of the dish at the very end as you're about to serve it. This dish can also be made vegan. You could have your beans, your corn, any other sort of vegetables you like. Bell peppers would be great in here. It's a versatile recipe, and you can really cater it to a lot of different diets. That was just like one chicken breast worth. I'm gonna go back in with my spoon and stir everything together. So the corn and the beans and the chicken also get coated in that sauce. Pretty happy with that. I'm gonna give it another shake. Now I just like to let this sit for a bit, let the chips soak up a bit of the sauce. Just keep your eye on it. I would just scrape the bottom every so often, make sure you're not getting any burning on the bottom. And here we have the final dish, chilaquiles with sour cream and guacamole that has been homemade and garnished with shredded cheese and cilantro. Take a bite and see how this is. See? This is one of my favorite dishes, and for good reason. Has a great amount of spice, great flavors, the textures. You have the pop of the corn, the beans, the sort of unique texture of the chips after they've been soaked in the sauce, creaminess from the sour cream and the guacamole. The cilantro just gives it such a fresh taste. The chicken gives it that meaty flavor that we're all craving. If you're a meat eater, that is. Highly recommend making this. So something I wanted to talk about in addition to the chilaquiles that I made is how cooking food and different cultures can be a great way to start a conversation. You feel like starting conversations and finding an idea to start a conversation is difficult. So I feel like food is always a good place to start. Everyone has to eat, and there are so many offshoots to food. So the chilaquiles I made, it's my favorite dish. One of my favorite dishes to eat. Mexican food is one of my favorite cuisines, and so I feel like you could do so much with that. You could talk about what type of dinners you like to eat. You could talk about what sort of baked goods, what's your favorite food? Do you like to go out to eat with your family? Do you like to cook? There are so many different questions you could talk about. And you could also talk about culture. Talk about your own cultural background or different cuisines that you like to cook or that you enjoy eating. Now, I'm no expert on Mexican food, so anything that I make that is from another culture is, you know, something that it might be my own version. It's not going to be true to how someone, in this case of Mexican culture, would make that dish, the chilaquiles. So, you know, if you're interested in making an authentic version, go out and find those authentic versions. This version I made, I've looked up recipes before, kind of did a mashup of a bunch of ones, kind of made it up myself, honestly, based off of where they serve it at one of my favorite restaurants that is not a Mexican restaurant. So, you know, I think it's great to have dishes like chilaquiles that are very versatile, that you can make your own. I don't know what authentic chilaquiles would look like, but this is a recipe I still feel like is a great recipe to make for dinners. It feeds a lot of people. So when you're having a conversation, if you want to have a conversation about your culture, make sure you stick to just that, right? Because if we start talking about other cultures that we are not a part of, if I start talking about Asian culture or Mexican culture or any other culture out there, it's not going to look good on me, right? So just keep that in mind. We can have favorite foods, favorite dishes, favorite things we like to cook from other cultures, totally fine. I just want to say that my dish, chilaquiles this evening is not authentic. It's not traditional by any means. And I still think it's a great recipe to cook. I just wanted to be transparent with all of you about that. So keeping that in mind, you can talk about, here are some foods from my culture. If you are Asian, if you are Mexican, and you have foods that are from your culture or from that particular cuisine that you love, share about those. You know, for me, I talk about how I like Mexican food, but I can't say, culturally speaking, much more about it than I like this dish, and this is what I like about it. So I feel like that could open up a lot of doors. You can get that conversation going about cultures, your own culture. You can get a lot of insight on other people's cultures just with a conversation like that, which I think is always amazing to hear other people's perspectives, especially ones that are different from ours, so vastly different, I should say. So you can talk about foods within your culture that you really like, whatever those may be. You can talk about your favorite foods, what you like to cook, favorite baked goods, if you enjoy cooking, if you enjoy baking, where you like to go out to eat, favorite fast food restaurants. There's just so many offshoots when it comes to conversation topics for food and dining and things like that, that I think it's just a great place to start if you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have a conversation. And maybe you have a great idea. Maybe you have an idea for a conversation. Go with it. I was talking to another SLP on Instagram. So if you are an autistic person or just any person and you're like, I want to talk about this, go for it. But if you're like, I have no idea what to talk about, that's okay too. This is just an idea. If you're like, oh, what can I talk about? I'd say food is always a great thing to talk about because it's relatable to everyone. And with that, thank you for watching. I hope this provided some great info if you are an SLP or anyone else out there that needed some conversation topic tips. And with that, until next time, see you later. Bye.